Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists, and this is going to be a brief history of cold steel. This is my collection. Yes, it's most of the knives of cold steel that I have, not all of them. I have a few, maybe I have a couple more in some kits somewhere else, but this is basically it. Now, I don't have a massive collection. I have been collecting cold steel knives for quite some time, since the beginning. When I first got into this, I think it was like almost 20 years ago, when cold steel was first getting started. Actually, the first one I bought was this little Voyager, the first generation of cold steel Voyagers. Cold steel was the new cool guy in the knife, in the tactical knife world. Up until then, there hadn't been anything as aggressive in terms of the marketing like cold steel. Cold steel was probably the first brand that went on to make their proof videos. You would ask a DVD from them, they would send you a DVD with proof of their superiority in terms of knife durability, tests and such. I don't know if it was the best all-around manufacturer there was, but they sure had a very strong approach to it and made a pretty strong claim in terms of, yes, we're going to be testing our knives until to see how much they can take until they break and such. So that was something that immediately appealed, at least to me, and pretty sure it appealed to a lot of people, because from that moment on, cold steel became a household name. So this was the first one I got from cold steel. This is their first Voyager. As you see, it's kind of tiny, and this is one of the things I didn't like so much about it. This is a handy little knife. As you see, it has this, I think it's Zid-Cell plastic handle, no liner of any kind, not even a washer, and it's just pinned in place, nothing else. You do have the plastic clip from cold steel, as it says there, integrated, and it's a single-handed open, but you have to switch to one side or to the other. This was fine. I just wanted something a little bit bigger. So I soon ended up moving to something like this. Cold steel was also one of their first American manufacturers to make a strong bet on the Tanto tip, the Americanized Tanto. It is quite good. I've had good results with it over the years. It's not the Japanese type of Tanto, but it's very practical and easy to sharpen. This is a knife that, even though it doesn't seem like it, I've used it a lot. I've used the hell out of this knife, and it's still looking brand new. This was a time, remember, when cold steel was still making their knives in Japan. The quality of steel was, in my opinion, better than it is today. I think this was like a 440C or ATS 34, is it? I don't know, but it's a high quality premium stainless steel with a nicer, not mirror, but kind of like a glossy, it's like a satin finish. This, I believe, is better than the kind of finish they put in their blades right now. This stone wash finish is something you'll see soon enough. It's cheaper. It does retain a little bit of oil for better, but this is of course better. No doubt about it. But it's also more expensive. Now, moving on, one of the knives I ended up liking very early on is the recurve type of blade they use on the Vaquero, or El Hombre, as this one was called. Now, cold steel moved to metal clip just on one side. You couldn't move it to the other, but you had a metal clip. As you see, this one is very well worn, because I used this one. It actually saved my neck one time, this knife, in a certain little encounter I had. It came very handy for that. So it's a knife that I definitely appreciate. You have the stud that goes on both sides, and you have the jimping. Even before it was that much of a big deal on YouTube, cold steel was already doing their jimping jobs, and it's pretty decent in the El Hombre series. Now, jimping is nothing new. It's been around for hundreds of years, but yes, cold steel was already doing it, and you have that option of opening your knife on either side. Still no washer on the pivot point or anything like that, and no reinforcement. Just plastic was good enough. Now, this is one of the more later generations of Voyager. The one I bought after this one was the Vaquero Grande. I soon understood that you want to have a big knife, and this may seem excessive, but you are dead wrong. It is not excessive at all. This was perfect. This is like a 6-inch blade, and yeah, man, it is a traditional navaja, like a Spanish fighting knife. If you look at some of the manuscripts from back in the day of Spanish knife fighting, navajas were like this or bigger. Navajas were big suckers, like, you know, huge folding knives. That's what they would use for navaja type of fighting. So they would have these the carrasquera type of knives. It was a huge folding knife that you would open like a big folding sword and fight with that. So there's nothing wrong with having a big folding fighting knife, and this is definitely a good one from Cold Steel. I like it so much that I ended up buying, you know, their later version, which would be this one. This one without the serrations. I think that I already have the recurve, so I don't need those serrations. It's still going to be catching material nicely enough, and you have that very strong penetrating point. This is a great design by Cold Steel. I think Lim Thompson feels very strongly about this design as well. But this was the later generation latest generation of the Voyager series, which is one of the strongest offerings they have. This is the Tanto half-half. This is more of a utilitarian type of design, in my opinion. You have those serrations, you have the straight edge, but these are already reinforced. You see that metal on the inside, right? This makes it stronger. You can also adjust these ones. This can be disassembled. The clip goes on both sides. So these were all upgrades. The steel is not as good anymore, and these are no longer made in Japan. These are made in Taiwan. Good enough. I don't have a problem with that. Stone wash, yes, I'd rather have that nice satin finish, but I'm okay with this. The blade is still fantastic. It's a great knife. Aus 8. Now they have their even fancier metal that makes it a bit more expensive. I don't know if it's worth it all that much, but this is a great knife. And maybe one of the more significant improvements is the Triad Lock by Demco. Seems silly, seems like not a big deal, because it's basically just a stub there, a pin basically in that corner, and what that achieves is it catches the back lock. Is not just catching the blade, but it's trapping the blade between that pin. So it's compressing the blade against the pin and catching it. So you have those 3 points where it doesn't seem like a lot, but design wise it's a lot stronger than the traditional back lock that does not have that pin and just catches the blade, and all the pressure goes into this point and this one. Now with that extra point, you have those 3 points, those 3 pivot points where the blade is sending that force, and it makes for the strongest lock, as far as I know, the strongest lock in any folding knife to my knowledge. Now Cold Steel also, of course, makes fixed blades and such. I have some of them. I like their Cold Steel Machete. It's a great big knife. It's very cheap. I have a couple of these, and this one I still have with the original sticker. These were made in South Africa. The later ones are made in China. The one I have in a kit is the latest, the Chinese one. I decided to keep this one as it is, because even though I have used it, I still have the sticker. So yeah, I'll keep it with the sticker because of the sentimental value. The edge is not original. This is my own edge, and it is razor sharp. It makes for a very fine, sharp blade. And this is 1055, cheap steel, but very good steel nonetheless. So maybe one of their, they have great knives. These were still being made in Japan, the Kobun series. These were made in Japan, very fine stainless steel, and these were intended to be carried. And for a time, I did carry this knife for self-defense in a few occasions that I felt I needed, and it was a great tool to have. Just goes in there. Another one that's very good, this, I don't think they're making this one anymore, the Kulodan. This is made in US, carbon 5, Kulodan, and it comes with this concealed carry sheath. You have leather on one side, nylon on the other, and man, this is a great little defensive blade. Another one that was very nice back in the day, the Peacemaker, I believe this is the one, made in US, carbon 5, and they had this finish. It's like a glass bed of some type, little glass crystals finish. This is great. It just looks good. It has no friction whatsoever, super smooth, easy to keep clean. I like it a lot better than this type of epoxy paint finish that is so often used these days. And this is an SRK, also a very famous design by Cold Steel. The SRK is a classic in the survival prepper community, a great knife. You know, it's not anything strange or unusual. It's just like a classic Bowie clip point blade. And man, it just does a great job. Now, again, these were made in the United States, not anymore. The Taiwan ones are, what is it, like AUS 8 or SK5 or whatever it is. Now, the cool thing is that over the years, and this was a design by Cold Steel, this is an original model of theirs, but it's been so well received that these days it's being used, as far as I know, still being used by the Navy SEAL. The Navy SEALs in this Navy SEAL school, which I believe is BUDS, right? The underwater demolition school, they would use the Ontario MK3. You correct me if I'm wrong there in the comment section if I'm getting that wrong. But I know they would have an Ontario knife that was okay, but kind of crappy. That was the knife that they were being issued in BUDS. Now, the story goes, I don't know if this is a fact or not. Again, if you have better information, comment there below. And the thing is this. They were not as well received, and people would discard the issue knives and they would get themselves something they like better, and usually that something they like better was an SRK from Cold Steel. Now, someone with an ounce of brain there decided, okay, obviously guys like the SRK, let's issue the SRK directly and let's go with that knife officially. And again, as far as I know, the SRK is used by many Navy SEALs. Of course, they can then later on use whatever the hell they want to be using. But the SRK, as far as I remember, is being issued or was issued until quite recently for Navy SEALs. It's a fantastic knife. I completely understand why that would be. It's a great general purpose sturdy knife with a very strong narrow tip that even if you manage to clip or break it a little bit, you still have a heck of a knife going on for you. So folks, that's it. I'll leave a few links below for some of these knives that are still available. Definitely the link for the SRK, definitely the link for the Voyager knives, some of my favorite ones. So yeah, these are all great options. Cold Steel doesn't make anything super expensive. Well, they do make some fancy, more expensive knives, but it's known as a pretty wide range. You have more affordable ones. I have one that's going to be arriving soon, and I'll do a review soon enough, the Pro Light. Seems like a nice little knife, but it's a great brand. I have a lot of their knives because they're good stuff for the money. Folks, if you like my take on survival and preparedness, remember there's my books, Bugging Out and Relocating. You have the Modern Survival Manual, Surviving the Economic Collapse, which is very relevant, as well as Street Survival Skills, which is definitely the book you want to get for what's going on today on the streets. See you in our next video. Have an awesome day.